Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to implement Firebase Authentication in a simple project, okay? I've already taken the time to build the template and we are going to do so, that is, implement this Firebase Authentication under the following talking points, okay? First of all, we are going to look at the project walkthrough. Then we are going to install and set up Firebase. We are going to see how we can allow our users to create an account and log in using the Firebase Authentication SDK. We are also going to allow them to reset their email in case they forgot their email. And last but not the least, we are going to look at how we are going to implement Google authentication still using Firebase, okay? So I don't just want to waste your time over building a template because I've already taken the time to do that. However, I'm just going to quickly walk you through that template, okay? So let's go. This is a simple React project I've set up with it, and you can see we have our node modules folder, our public folder, src folder, the git ignore file, an eslinked.config.js file. We have our index.html file. We have a package.log.json, a package.json file, a readme file, and a vidconfig file. So let me go ahead and open the src folder. And you can see that inside this src folder, we have an assets folder. This is where we drop any of the assets we are using. But since I don't have any assets, there is no need. We have a navigation folder, and this navigation folder contains the parts of our application that allow our users to navigate between different screens, okay? So let me go ahead and open this constant.js file. And you can see that inside this constant.js file, we are creating and exporting a variable screens, right? And you can see that this screen is an object. Inside this screen object, first of all, we have a home property, which is equal to a / route. We have a login property, which is equal to a / login route. We have a register property, which is equal to / register route. We have a forgot password property, which is equal to / forgot password. We have a reset password property, which is equal to / reset - password. Then we have a dashboard property, which is equal to / dashboard, okay? So let's look at the index.js file. In the index.js file, you can see that first of all, we import create browser router from React router DOM. Then we import the screens object. We import all of the pages to our application, that is the login page, the register page, the forgot password page, the reset password page, and the dashboard page, okay? And right after we import all of these items, what we do is to create a router, and this router is equal to the result of calling the create browser router, okay? This accepts an array of routes, okay? And the first route we have here is the index route, and the path for that is the screens / home, screens.home. Then the element for that path is the register page, okay? Then we have another path which corresponds to the register path, while the element for that is the register page. We have another path which corresponds to the login path, and the element for that part is the login element. You have another part which corresponds to the forgot password part, and the element for that part is forgot password. We have another part which corresponds to the reset password part, and the element for that is reset password. Then we have another part, the last part, which corresponds to the dashboard part, and the element for that is the dashboard element. And finally, we are exporting this router as default from this file, okay? Now, inside of this pages folder is where we drop all of the pages for our app. And you can see that we have two folders inside. We have an alt folder. This alt folder has 4 folders inside: a forgot password folder, a login folder, a register folder, and a reset password. So let's start with the forgot password folder. So if I open this folder, you can see that we have an index.js file inside, and this is the component for our forgot password page. I don't want to waste your time going over that. You can see that we have a components folder inside of the forgot password folder. I can see that this components folder has another component inside, okay, or has a component inside, which is the forgot password form.js, and this is the form that allowed users to enter their email in case they forgot their password, okay? Now, the login folder has an index.js file inside, which is the page, the component for the login page, right? I have a folder inside of that login folder named components. Now, inside of that components folder, we have a login form.jsx file, okay? And this is the component for the login form. This is the form that allowed users to log in, okay? Now, we have a register page. This register page has an index.js file inside, which corresponds to the page for the register for them to create an account, okay? We have a folder inside of that register folder named components, and inside of this components folder, we have a register form.js component, and this register form is the form that allows users to create their account, okay? Basically, the registration form. Don't worry much about this reset password folder because we'll not go into that. So let me close this alt folder and let me open up this dashboard folder. I can see that there's just one component inside of this dashboard folder, an index.jxs file, okay? And this corresponds to the dashboard. That is what they will see when they successfully create the account or when they log in, okay? We have our app.css file. You have our app.jxs file. Inside this app.jxs file, we import the router provider from React Router DOM. Then we import that router we exported as default from our index, from navigation/index.jxs file. Yes, this router here, we are importing it into our app.jxs file. Then inside this app.jxs file, we use the router provider, okay? And we set the router attribute on router provider to be equal to that router we imported from navigation/index.js, okay? Then we have our main.js file. So now we have seen how our application works, okay? Let's actually go into the coding. So the next thing we do is to open up a terminal and run npm install Firebase, okay? And after that is done installing, we'll create a new file, firebase-settings.js. And inside it, I will copy and paste in the Firebase config object straight from our Firebase console. Then I'll replace the import get analytics statement with import get auth from Firebase/auth. Then we'll create a new variable auth, which is equal to the result of calling the get auth and passing in the app as an argument to it, okay? We will export this auth variable from this file. Then we'll start up the project locally by running npm run dev from the terminal. After which we'll create a new file, helper.js, inside the auth/register folder. Inside of this file, we will create and export a function, create account. This is an async function which accepts an object with a name property, an email property, and a password property. Then we import the auth object we created from firebase-settings.js file. Then we will call create user with email and password, which is imported from Firebase/auth. This function allows us to create a new user on Firebase Authentication, okay? It accepts 3 arguments. The first is an auth object, the second is the user's email, and the last is the user's password, okay? We are going to destructure out the user from the result of calling this function, that is create user with email and password. Then we call await update profile to update the user's display name with the name argument, okay? This update profile can also be imported from Firebase Authentication, okay? Firebase/auth. We'll wrap the entire function body with a try catch block, and in the try section, we will return an array where the first item is the newly created user and the second item will be a null object, okay, because there are no errors. Meanwhile, inside the catch block, we are going to return an array where the first item is null, and the second item is going to be the error, okay? So you understand this pattern. If you've been watching the videos on this channel, you're going to be used to it because that's the pattern we use for like walking through our application, okay? So let's head over to a browser to preview our template. You can see that we have a nice looking template here, and this is registration page, okay? We are going to head back to the register form.js page on VS Code, where we will update the name of the first input field, that is the one where the users enter their name, and change the name attribute on it to full name, okay? We are going to create a form ref variable, which is basically a ref object that points to the registration form, okay? I'll create a stateful variable is loading, which is going to handle the loading state on our form. And I'll also create a function handle submit, which accepts an event object E. And inside this function, we are going to call e.prevent default, okay? The next thing we are going to do is to destructure add the name, the email, and the password from the form. Then we'll call set is loading with true rather before we start to process the form. That's we are changing the loading state to true. Then we are going to import and call the create account function from the helper file, right? Pass in an object with a name, an email, and a password property. Remember, this function returns an array, so we need to destructure out the user and the error object returned, okay? If there are any errors while trying to create the account, we will call alert with the error, and then we are going to try and log that error out to the console. Otherwise, if the user account is created successfully, then we want to alert the user that the account is created successfully. We'll log out that user to the console, and then we are just going to pause with this function implementation, scroll up and above the function definition where we will create a variable navigate, which is equal to the result of calling the use navigate hook. The use navigate hook can be imported from React Router DOM, okay? We'll head back to the handle submit function definition and go down where our user account is created successfully. So if the user account is created successfully, then we are going to navigate the user to the dashboard. The onSubmit attribute on the form will also be equal to the handle submit function we just created. We disable the submit button while we are currently processing the form, so the user does not click the button twice, and we are also going to show them a loading state on the button. Then we head back to the browser where we will create an account with a name of John Doe and an email of johndoe@gmail.com and a password. We will sign in and you can see that we get an alert saying that our account is created successfully and we are redirected to the dashboard. You can see that the user is also logged out to the console. Okay, so now we are done with this creating accounts functionality. Let's implement the login functionality. Okay, we head back to VS Code where we'll create a new file helper inside the auth/login folder, and inside this file we import auth from Firebase settings file. Then we'll also import sign in with email and password. Okay, then we'll create and export a function login user which accepts two arguments, email and password, which will pass as arguments to the sign in with email and password function, which can be imported from Firebase/auth. We are also going, then we'll destructure add the user that is returned from this function. We'll wrap the function implementation with a try catch block. Inside the try block, we will return an array which contains the user as the first item and null as the second item. Then, as usual in the catch block, we'll return an array with null as the first item and the error object as the second item. Then we head back to the login form component where we'll create a form ref object. Then we'll create a stateful variable is loading and set is loading. Then we'll create a function handle submit which accepts an event object e. Inside the function, we will call e.prevent default. Then we extract the form inputs, email and password, which we will pass as argument to the login user function, which we import from the helper file. We destructure out the user and the error object returned from the array. We will process the error as usual by firing an alert if there's one. If the user account is created successfully, then we'll also alert the user that the login process is successful, and then we want to navigate them to the dashboard page. Okay, we will ensure that we disable the button while the form is being processed. Then we'll also show a loading state when the form is being processed. I'll head back to the browser and navigate to the login page. Then I will use the credentials I created earlier to log into the account. You can see that we get an alert, login successful, and we are redirected to the dashboard. Now let's see how we can send the user a reset email. We'll head back to the project on VS Code to create a new file helper.js. We import the auth object from the Firebase settings.js file. We'll create a function send password reset email, which is an async function. Inside it, we add a try/catch block, and inside the try block, we'll call await send password reset email, which is imported from Firebase auth. Then we'll return an array with a response string as the first item and null as the second item. We'll head to the forgot password form.js file where we'll create a form ref object and an is loading stateful variable. Then we'll create an async function handle submit, which accepts an event object e. Inside this function, we'll call e.prevent default, and then we'll set is loading to true. We'll extract the email from the form and use it to send the user the reset email by calling the send reset password email, which is imported from the helper file. If there are any errors while trying to send them the email, we alert the user of that error, and if the process is successful, we'll also alert them that the process is successful and redirect them to the login page. We'll set the ref object on the form to be the form ref object and the onSubmit attribute to be equal to the handle submit function. If we head back to our browser to test this method add by entering our email, you can see that it is successful and we are redirected. We then create and export a function, Google sign in, which is an async function. And inside this function, we will create a provider object, which will be equal to the result of instantiating the new Google Auth provider. This Google Auth provider class is imported from Firebase/auth. Next, I'll call the sign in with pop-up function with the auth object and the provider object. Then we'll wrap everything with a try catch block. The sign in with pop-up function is also imported from Firebase auth. We get to the register/index.js file where I will create a function handle click, which is an async function. Then we check if there are any errors while trying to sign in with Google. However, if the user account is created successfully, we want to redirect them to the dashboard. If there are any errors, then we want to process that error by showing the user an alert. We will ensure we add the isLoading stateful variable to help us manage the loading state on the form. Then we'll set the onClick handler on the Google Auth button to be equal to the handle click function. We will use the isLoading stateful variable to manage the disable state of the button. And that is going to be it for this video, guys. If you've been following along and you've been paying attention, you can easily go ahead and test that out, okay? Absolutely smash that like button and ensure that you subscribe to our channel so you can get access to all of our videos in the future as they drop. And I'm going to see you in the next one.